Hello and greetings, everyone. This is Louis Santos, IOH's Business Development Director, and I would like to welcome all of you to the Healing Path of Eco Meditation webinar. We are so glad to have you. Before we begin our special presentation, I'd like to remind to let everyone know that this is a pre-recorded webinar. However, if you have any questions, please use the chat box right at the sidebar, and we will do our best to answer your questions during this presentation. You can also email us at support@iowatechnologies.com. Now, in this webinar, The Healing Path of Eco Meditation, Moving Beyond Trauma and Opening to Cosmic Unity, we will understand the roots of our trauma and disease and how to use a cutting edge, holistic, body centered technology uh, to meditate more deeply, to heal emotionally, and to awaken transcendent states of unity, joy, and peace. And at the end of this presentation, we will also introduce our very first product collaboration with Dr. Dawson Church called EcoMeditation, a science-based tested path to heal your wounded heart and awaken your soul. Now, before we get started, I realize that some of you might just be discovering our presenters for the very first time today. So our first presenter and our guest of honor, Dr. Dawson Church, is a legendary EFT teacher, a best-selling science writer, and the author of three award-winning books. He is most renowned for his work in the EFT universe. He's also known for his books, The Genie in Your Genes, Mind to Matter, and Bliss Brain. He is also the founder of the Veteran Stress Solutions, which has offered free PTSD treatment to over 22,000 veterans. And our next presenter is Lee Spusta, creator of IOWIG Technologies, Deep Delta, Gamma 40, Alpha Rising, and many more. Lee is also the musical and psychoacoustic genius behind our upcoming product with Dawson's called Eco Meditation. Finally, we also have with us in this webinar John Tupui, co-founder and CEO of iOwake Technologies. John is also known for his work as a co-host of the Deep Transformation, a podcast that he co-hosts with the University of California, Irvine's Dr. Roger Walsh. So I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar, and I hope that you enjoy this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask the first question to Dawson, if you guys don't mind. But Dawson, can you please tell us more about how eco meditation came to be, and what were the methods that you use in creating a meditation that's also grounded in in scientific research?
Yeah, so it's called EcoMeditation, ECO. Its basis was that it's hard to meditate by using the mind. It's hard to still the mind using the mind. And I went and lived on a spiritual community when I was 15 years old, and the meditation teacher there said, meditation's simple. Here's a cushion, sit there, be still, don't squirm around, and still your mind. Now, I can sit on the cushion really well. That bit I had that one down, but still my mind, like I have never been able to still my mind in meditation. In fact, today I meditated for a couple of hours before starting my day, and my mind still wanders. And if you read even ancient texts like the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the mind just does its thing, and our minds evolved to be alert and focused on the opportunities and threats of the environment. That's how our ancestors survived. That's how animals survive today. And the mind simply did not evolve to be still. So there I was, 15 years old, sitting on my cushion like a good meditator, trying to still my mind and failing completely. So I had a track record of failure at 15, 25, 35, 45, every other time of my age of my life, couldn't still my mind. And then I began to realize that certain techniques were shown by research to be effective at controlling stress. And a lot of that mind wandering is to do with stress. We're worried that something's going to get us. So we tend to focus on threats, opportunities. And there were several techniques that controlled stress effectively, like the breath. Focusing on the breath alone, that one thing is enough to bring you into the present moment. And so breath work is a powerful way of doing it. I also talked to the people at HeartMath, and the research director there said, oh, we've been testing meditators, and we find that when they're in heart coherence, we train them to be in heart coherence, and then they meditate, they drop out of heart coherence. And heart coherence is a really good thing. So I thought, okay, let's layer into EcoMeditation a simple method of staying in heart coherence. So I added that. I added EFT acupressure, tapping on acupressure points into it, some self-hypnosis, some biofeedback, neurofeedback techniques, very simple ones. And these are all physiological things you can do with your body. They don't require the mind to be still. You can breathe at a certain rhythm that puts you in heart coherence, even if your mind isn't still. So I began to try this myself around 2000, 2003, 2004, and it worked much better than those old instructions my meditation master gave me at 15 years old, try and still your mind. And then I began to do it with groups of people. And I found that people could do eco-meditation and get into altered states, transcendent states, often the very first time they tried. We had one veteran called Bryce Rogo, who served 4 tours of duty in Iraq, came back with severe PTSD, nightmares, flashbacks, hypervigilance, all the classic symptoms, and tried for years to meditate his way out of it. Even went to Japan and lived in a Zen monastery and meditated daily and couldn't escape those PTSD symptoms. One day he was doing a web search, stumbled across eco-meditation, just read the instructions and did them one by one. And in 5 minutes, boom, he was there. And so people told me that they were having these experiences. I put up the instructions on the web for free. We began to have thousands of people just go there every month to download them. We began to do research, and the research showed, to our amazement, that it rapidly ameliorates anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. So that's the story behind it. And now it's well researched. We have EEG studies, MRI studies. It shows that it very rapidly, in about 5 minutes, puts you into that altered state without the need to still the mind. And then from there, you can hit those transcendent states and start to feel really good and have that deep meditative experience. So that's a very brief history of eco-meditation.
Terrific. I just want to say I've been using eco-meditation every day for the last couple of weeks in preparation for this conversation, and I have learned a lot. And one of the things I've learned, of course, is my personal experience, but the more you use it, the better it gets. It's like in the beginning when you're trying to learn how to serve a tennis ball, it's if you could even hit the ball, much less made it go, let it go is amazing. But the more you practice, it becomes one of the best feelings in the world when you get that serve in. All you tennis players know what I'm talking about. And it is, once I learned the basic structure, I fell into what you were doing, and I began to recognize the profound mystical state that you were facilitating to happen. And there's several favorite parts, but one of the favorite parts is when you send out the beams from your heart to every atom in the universe. And in that moment, I found, as I've worked with that, I found myself connecting with the universe in a way that intellectually I know, but doing it, that the mystical experiences of connecting make me one with all things and all of this good stuff. Well, there's a reason behind that, because it actually happens. But in the eco-meditation, once we've gone through the tapping and gone through this routine and getting there, it just opens up, and we're learning so much about the universe that we never knew before because of James Webb telescope, and we're seeing things, and it's like we thought we all kind of had it figured out, and now we're like, the mystery, and that can feel scary and disorienting. But with your meditation, I'm starting to feel more at home in the universe, because I am the universe, and I connect with and I'm not separate from that. That's my mother. That's my ground of being, and it's a tremendous accomplishment. And yeah, I would say the key is to do it, but then to keep doing it. use it as a practice and learn it till it becomes second nature. And the more I use it, the better it gets. So,
Yeah, people
wow.
have a hard time doing it often and daily, John. One of the cool things is that it's makes you feel good the first time you try it because it's not based on the mind, it's based on the body. And if you just breathe in that slow rhythm, if you do that little bit of tapping, if you have that visualization of connecting with every atom in the universe, then you feel good the very first time. And so I challenge people then to just do it for 30 days. And I know if they do it for 30 days, like one lady walked up to me at a workshop before COVID. She walked up to me at a live in-person workshop and said, Dawson, I took your challenge. I decided to do it for 30 days straight, no matter what, every single day. And I said, I'm so happy to hear that. And what day are you on right now? She said, I'm on day 147. Never missed a day. It's addictive. It feels so good to feel good. And so people tend to keep on doing it. So hit those states the first time they try it, they tend to keep on doing it thereafter because it does make you feel good and you want to feel good the next day and the day after that.
Yeah, and the groove just gets better and more expansive as you use this thing. It's quite remarkable. And Lee, I like to hear the part that you put in here. And Lee, let me just, I know you've had this long introduction, but I feel Lee is our resident scientist, wizard, and alchemist, and combines the wisdom of all of that into these remarkable tracks that open us up to ourselves and to the universe. So what did you do for this, and why did you do it the way you did it?
Well, thanks for having me here for this conversation. First off, thank you very much. Yeah, what I usually do with those occasions where I'm asked to participate with somebody else's work, in this case, Dawson's EcoMeditation. I try to get a real sense of the energy and the intention of what it is that the process is, and some of that's the personality of the person delivering that, in this case Dawson, and it really does start there. Tone of voice, I start thinking about timbres, what kind of instrumentation, in this case, because of the nature of the meditative process, I wanted to make sure that it supported what that was. It's important not to get in the way. Don't make something too complex or too busy. And so really my intent was, let's do something that supports the natural flow of energy, because that's really what it feels to me, what this process that Dawson came up with and put together is that it's freeing up that natural flow of energy within us, because we all have blocks that we're not even aware of most of the time. And even when we are, it doesn't make it so easy to just let that stuff go and let the energy flow naturally. So we need sometimes things to help us out. And I believe sound to be one of those amazing tools to do that. And so with this kind of process that Dawson put together, that it's highly kinesthetic, it's a lot about getting out of here. And so it's a lot of feeling, but when you do things like incorporating tapping or focus on the breath, it becomes a very body oriented process, which absolutely helps us get out of the mind. And so how do I with music support that? And that's about, to me, it was just get out of the way, just create a support structure. And so again, starting with the timbre, it has to match the resonance of the voice that it's going to be mixed with. And after that, it's the process itself. So there, in this case, I felt that a gentle ebb and flow. So kind of like waves that they recede and they come back in over time in such a way that you hardly even really notice it, but there's a rhythm of life that's happening there. And to me, that encourages the breath, or that encourages somebody to just sink in and then kind of, but still stay buoyant enough to focus on the process. And this is really where I came from with it. Keep it simple, make sure it supports the process of natural flow of energy.
And what brainwaves are you using in this process, Lee?
Definitely we're targeting an alpha The Schumann, so we're looking at 7.8 in this particular case. You know what? A lot of it was psychoacoustic. So, you know, picking the brainwave state was just, you know, what's going to match the overall intention of what Dawson's doing.
And say a little bit about the Schumann.
Human resonance. It's one of several. It's a planetary frequency of Earth that all life is in one way or another attuned to, because we're living in this biosphere of frequencies, and one of the most common ones is 7.83, which matches that, you know, right in there in that alpha state. And so, you know, it's a similar state to when people are in the zone, or when they are in a state of meditation. You know, there's also different states of meditation that produce gamma and these other things, but alpha is that very natural one that everybody experiences every day. Just closing your eyes, we start to propagate more alpha, and so it's getting out of that busy mind and settling back into, hey, I'm an earthling along with all the other
Let's be earthlings together. Love it.
Beautifully, thank you.
I'd also like to add that this is, I think I mentioned earlier that this is our first collaboration with Dawson Church, which is true, but also, I mean, this is true in a formal sense, but we've done some collaboration in the past where Dawson, I believe that you've used deep delta, least deep delta in a previous meditation, I think back during the pandemic. Would you like to share more about that? What was your experience or your community's experience about using that with lease work, or your meditation with lease work?
Yeah, so I became aware of iAwake through my dear friend and colleague Judith Pennington, and she was hooking people up to her EEG machine. And what I was asking her is, I said, you know, Judith, you go onto the App Store, and there are all these apps that say they're producing delta or theta or alpha in your brain. Are they? And she said, Doris and I have tested many of them, and they don't. They aren't. They're just saying that, and there's no empirical support for them. But she said, with the iAwake tracks, I find they actually are doing what they claim to do. I'm seeing those frequencies show up in people's brain waves. And so she turned me on to that. I experimented with a number of iAwake tracks, and I settled on deep delta because for me, it really was effective at taking me to that deep meditation that slows down the brain to that slowest brain wave, 0 to 4 cycles per second. It's interesting what goes on in the brain in those slow frequencies. And if you read some of the early research, they were measuring 1 to 4 cycles a second. People thought, neuroscientists thought 20, 30 years ago, nothing's happening below 1 cycle a second. That's really slow neural firing, because some of our neurons, often our neurons, are firing at hundreds of times a second. So they didn't even bother measuring that frequency below 1 cycle a second. Now there are studies showing that, for example, it is powerfully, there's a certain frequency, it's actually about 0.4, it's about less than half a cycle a second. And in that frequency, they have discovered that it actually helps us regenerate our telomeres, our anti-aging markers on our cells. So I found myself drawn to that slow brainwave meditation. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be right for you. It was really good for me, but you might find the theta tracks are better. You might find the alpha tracks are a better match for what you need. So experiment, play around with different tracks, see what works for you. But after a while, I so entrained myself to go into that deep state with deep delta that I just put it on, I would play it, and I'd get there really quickly rather than it taking me maybe half hour or 40 minutes to get there. If you look at neuroscience research, like with Andrew Newberg, his book, How Enlightenment Changes Your Brain, he says even experienced meditators often take 20 to 40 minutes to get into a deep state. If you're using an effective track, I found you can be there in 5 minutes. And then if you have a half-hour meditation, you don't spend 20 minutes getting to that state and 10 minutes in it. You then spend 5 minutes getting there and 25 minutes in it. So it's really important to find a track that works for you, use it, and then spend as much time reaping the benefits of that as possible. So that was my experience with Deep Delta. Even now, many years later, I still use it occasionally, and I find it induces states of creativity, states of relaxation, and that's really useful to me on occasion.
I've also found that if something doesn't work for you today, it may work for you in 6 months or a year when you go back to it, because as the ancient philosophers said, you can't step in the same river twice. Our brain is constantly evolving and changing, and what doesn't feel right for you then may feel exactly right for you at a later stage. And we were talking about using some of the new technologies that are coming out where people can begin to make their own entrainment zones according to, well, where they currently are at. So we're working on that, but don't be discouraged if you try one, it didn't work, come back later. And I guarantee you, if you've been working with other tracks, your brain is going to have changed in the meantime, and you might find a whole new experience of it.
Yeah. And the basic EcoMeditation track, as John was mentioning, the first part of it is about 5 minutes. That's where we're giving the body these cues. We have you relax your tongue, which sends a signal to the vagus nerve to go into parasympathetic relaxation mode. And the vagus nerve travels all over your body to your circulatory system and your respiratory system and your digestive tract. And so all of these systems are being affected by that simple instruction, physiological instruction of relaxing the tongue. The breathing rhythm we use puts you into heart coherence. A visualization we use puts you into deep heart coherence. That visualization that John mentioned about imagine connecting with every atom in the universe. And again, we phrase these in EcoMeditation in a way in which even if you have trouble visualizing, you'll still be able to do this. But what that does is it opens the flow of compassion. And in my book, Bliss Brain, I look at the MRI studies showing what produces the quickest neural remodeling of the brain, of all the meditation methods that are used. And there's been a 30, 40 years of research now using MRIs to examine this question. And the number one practice that produces rapid gene expression and rapid neural remodeling, the number one thing that does it is compassion. So I recommend you layer compassion into everything you do. In EcoMeditation, we have this beautiful image of sending beams of energy to every single atom in the universe. Why do we do that? Why do we send beams of energy to every atom in the universe? Well, we do it because we bypass personalities. You don't send beams of energy to every person in the universe, because what if people hurt you? We've been hurt by people. We've had disappointing experiences. If we engage that part of the brain, that's going to pull us out of those positive emotional states. So we send energy to every atom in the universe, and that's effective. And so this combination of things is going to put us into that state really quickly in the first 5 minutes. And then once we're there, we go and visualize a benevolent universe. We go and visualize genetic regeneration. We go and visualize longevity. We go and visualize our relationships being great. We then take that state into a set of intentions. But the first part of every eco-meditation is the same, because we know that these techniques, especially the compassion-based ones, really work.
Yeah, and one of the things that I feel is at least my intuition tells me it's so, is you are guiding us to places that you have inhabited well. I mean, this is not a theoretical thing for you. This is what you, and I've read your books, read his books. My God, they're life-changing, and they're written with such diligence to the science and intelligence, humility and great compassion. I mean, they're just masterworks. So, but because there's a transmission, there's an integrity to what you're doing in the process, and I think it feels very obvious. Not just anybody could have done that. It would have to have been somebody who would also had been somewhat of a long-term sojourner or a master of these particular states that you're guiding us into.
Yeah, and if you read the Yoga Sutras, or if you read Lao Tzu, if you read many of the great scriptural texts that talk about elevated states, it's wonderful to read them, but it's even more important to experience them. And like the Yoga Sutras are very mechanistic. They say, do this, breathe in this way, do asanas when you're at this stage, do pranayama at this stage. And so they're kind of a developmental map. But they say, Patanjali says toward the end, and if you have this glorious transcendent experience, you can get there even if you don't master any of the preparatory steps. So it's really important to just have the experience. And that's the beauty of eco-meditation. You discover there is that place of compassion, of love, of feeling one with all that is. And you discover that at the very beginning. Now you know there's a place to go to. Afterwards, you can develop your ability to get there and get there quickly and get there reliably. And the cool thing is we find that we did one really ambitious MRI study. It was a randomized controlled trial. We had people divided into two groups, one doing a 22 minutes eco-meditation track, one doing a mindful breathing track. We put them in an MRI, an advanced state-of-the-art high-resolution MRI before and after using those tracks for a month. And we found when we did the brain scans at the end and compared the two groups, the composite scan of the two groups, we found massive change in the brains of people who had done eco-meditation for a month. So we found that the part of the brain that tends to ruminate, think about the bad stuff, do obsessive negative thinking, repetitive negative thinking, that part of the brain was quiet. And the compassion part of the brain was lit up like a city street. It was beautiful to watch those brain scans. So doing that MRI research showed us that the brain was remodeling itself for greater compassion and less fear and worry in only 1 month. It does not take 10,000 hours. It does not take going into a monastery and taking vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and giving up all the giving up your Reese's peanut butter cups and your glass of red wine. You just have to do the meditation. Now, you may well make some lifestyle changes after even doing it for a few months, but the remarkable thing about that study is we found, in the words of the authors, that people were reaching these states. In fact, Judith Pennington wrote after her very first clinical trial in 2018, people were reaching states after an hour of eco-meditation, normally seen only in advanced meditators with 10,000 hours. So you get there really fast. You then know that place is available to you. That motivates you to go there over and over again. Your brain starts to change. It gets easier and easier. And after a while, your life gets easier. Your life gets a lot happier. And you start to hit that state that I call in my book, bliss brain. So that's the promise of just starting a regular practice here.
Yes, and you just stated the whole mission of I Awake is to help people get to these transcendent states where life becomes worth it, if you will. Life becomes transcendent. It becomes, okay, I'm home. This is what I'm here to do. This is the true me, and the increase in love and compassion, which I think is essential for all true spiritual experiences or spiritual paths. They can talk about whatever you want, whatever way you mix it. But at the end, if we're not increasing in love and compassion and wisdom and peace.
Joy.
And joy. Yeah, thank you. It may be interesting. There may be a lot of fireworks, but you're probably not in something that's going to ultimately do what you need to get done. So,
John, I don't know about you, but I've never had any kind of colorful experiences in meditation. Like I know we have people, we have a program called the Short Path to Oneness. We guide people for a year in non-dualism and Vedanta techniques, and they apply them one after the other. And some of the people in that program say, oh, I was meditating. I saw all these beautiful colors all around people and trees and animals. And I felt this, one woman said, I felt this spring of crystal clear energy pouring up through my spine, out the top of my head. And these angelic beings began to be. I've heard people who are going through the Short Path to Oneness course talk about these kinds of experiences. And I don't have any of that stuff going on. I don't see colors or beings or anything like that. When I go to deep meditation, what I do see is this beautiful, in the words of one mystic, perfect, brilliant stillness. And it's like this universe that's full of life, full of compassion, pulsing with light and love and energy and consciousness. But there's nothing specific, like an angel or, a crystal fountain for me. So,
Yeah.
so you may or may not get those things. And either
No,
way.
no. If you get the angel with the flaming sword, say go hither and that, you might want to pay attention. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's to me, and I say I've been haunted by God. I've had experiences ever since I was a little boy of deep, profound connection with God. I'll just say the word, with spirit, and it's more that the world around me lights up and becomes translucent, and there's this deep knowing and a deep sense of warmth and just ultimately okayness, and that at the bottom of it all there is love and compassion, and for that reason there's nothing to fear. It's gonna be okay. It is okay and always has been. And Lee, did you have something that you wanted to add to what we were
Oh,
talking about?
reacting to your Gabriel flaming sword idea, I don't think too many of us want to see that while we're meditating. But did Muhammad get visited by him before he wrote the Quran? I believe it was
Yeah.
Gabriel. Yeah. But you know what? That's what's interesting about the human experience is that we all take information in differently. We all connect with it in a different way. And so, yeah, I'm not that guy that necessarily has fireworks happening when I get into any of the different, um, meditative states, any kind of altered state, really. I mean, even I was, you know, when I was a teenager, I did some experimentation, a little mushroom kind of thing with some friends. And I'll tell you, I was also the guy that's like, what? I was jealous of the things these people were experiencing. But what I did have that I learned from was um, it has to do with surrender. You have to surrender to whatever the experience is because the ego wants to get in there and it wants to control the show. And that's what's great about the kind of process that we're talking about with meditation is it kind of bypasses that stuff where a lot of us were sitting there and we're trying to do something, focus and whatever the fashion is, a quick meditation or just focusing on bills. I mean, our mind gets in the way; it finds a way to do that. And when we can short circuit, or bypass that, it's really a great thing. And so, um, at the end of the day, what's the common denominator of the experiences that we're having as humans? You know, so we're all going to react to it differently, but that sense of connectedness, a sense of peace, where we experience ourselves outside of or apart from, maybe apart's not the right word, but not subjugated by our mind in that chatterbox. It's a freeing experience, and so I think that's what's maybe the common denominator or synonymous with everybody that can get into these states. And I know through HMI, college hypnotherapy, we study suggestibility and what that is, and how there are people that take in information in very literal ways, and those of us that take in more inferential means of understanding what people are saying and the world around us and whatnot, and how we output or how our mind conjures up, aids to our understanding or clues to how we're getting it. Some of us are very visual, some of us are very auditory, and some of us are very feeling centered. And so, um, it's kind of a one size fits all when you have something that really engages the listener. It takes them into the state, and if they see fireworks or they see angels or they see whatever, that's great. That's how they understand something to be
Sure.
happening. That's the way of interpreting, and finding a connection with whatever that is. Some of it's more abstract, just a sense or feeling state, and it's just great because nonetheless we can all kind of get there with the same tool. And that's the fun part. We don't have to create all these different tools for different types of people. We can just find something that really works.
Well, H.A. Almas, who I've had the honor and privilege of interviewing twice on deep transformation, his latest work says that there are infinite ways to become enlightened. So for say, well, my enlightenment, my version, yeah, maybe you have yours, but mine's really the best one. It's like there's just the universe is, and there's no end to it. There's no end point. Like I'm totally enlightened. It's all good now. Apparently not, according to Almas Hamid, and he's a pretty smart guy. And so it's very exciting, and we get what we need. And some of us react one way or the other. But I think the point that you brought out, Lee, about surrendering to the process is hugely, as somebody who's fought it tooth and nail for decades, to learn surrendering and not just fighting with God. That was one of my things. I didn't pray, I argued. And but even that was honored and blessed, so it's all good. And don't try to put enlightenment or try to put God or put higher power or put ultimate consciousness into a box, because you won't find a box that'll fit. It never does.
No.
Yeah, I think that honoring your way of processing information is important. That's why, Lee, you're saying that there are many different ways of processing information. And John, you're saying that Alma said there are many different ways to enlightenment. And it's important to find your way. In my book, Bliss Brain, I list 7 different styles of meditation. And there is no one size fits all. Like, for example, there are people who are really drawn to moving meditations, and they just naturally enter these states through yoga or qigong or tai chi or Buddhist walking meditation or taking walks in nature. That's their style. And when they sit down stationary and close their eyes, nothing happens for them. Other people need that stillness. It doesn't really work for them to move around at all. Still, other people are drawn into it by reading. If you read the work of elevated saints, masters, like my current favorite reading is Patanjali. There are many scriptures that'll take you there, and that can bring you to those states. And so that's one in Catholicism is called Lectio Divina. So you want to do Lectio Divina if that's what's going to bring you there. And so experiment with what takes you there fastest. Now, I will advocate for getting there quickly and using some kind of short path, because the long path, like the Buddhists talk about thousands of lifetimes. And, personally, I'm thinking, I don't want to spend thousands of lifetimes getting there. I want to get there, like in the next half hour. I want to sit down. I want a really efficient meditation that's going to take me there right away. And I know the years I spent wandering around trying to use regular meditation were really discouraging. And I think a lot of people try regular meditation, just closing their eyes, trying to still their minds, getting nowhere, and thinking there's something wrong with them. They're defective. They're not a good meditator. And so I think a lot of traditional meditation instruction, like what I got when I was 15 years old, is not giving us a good service. So find out what takes you there quickly and then do it again and again and again and again, because then you're sparking neuroplasticity, you're experiencing these elevated states, which are accompanied by some of the most powerful learning neurochemicals that there are: serotonin, dopamine, anandamide, oxytocin, beta endorphin. All of these neurochemicals are released in the brain. Dopamine, your basic motivational molecule, meditators have a rise of up to 65% in dopamine in their brains. People in ecstasy, the Rumis and the St. Catharines of us, they have huge rises in oxytocin. They just feel totally stoned on the love drug. It's like being in love all the time in a maximal way. So find out what works for you, and then just commit to it and do it over and over and over again. And then you'll find yourself changing. Again, that EcoMeditation study found your brain is then changing within 30 days. You then accelerate the process, and soon you're reaching states of ecstasy, not just in meditation, but it spreads throughout your daily life. And that's the progression we find, is initially it's internal. You start to feel really good internally, and your mood improves. You become super happy. That happiness becomes stable. But after a while, you walk down the street smiling and people smile along with you. You walk into a room. We've all seen a great leader, a great teacher walk into a room, maybe a great saint, and suddenly the whole room is uplifted just by the radiance of that person. That's where you move to eventually. Patanjali says that we move into the presence of radiant beings. We are a radiant being, and we become a radiant being. And then, as Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see. So Ruby said that when I was young, I was ambitious. I wanted to change the world. Now I am wise. I want to change only myself. And the irony is that as I change myself, as I become that peaceful, centered, kind, stable, compassionate, loving, blissful person, anyone who walks within 25 feet of me is going to feel the effect. And we literally measure this effect, group effects of this, that person walks into the room, everyone feels better. In the Framingham Heart Study, the people who are the next door neighbors feel better, and the people 3 layers out from them feel better as well. So doing this for yourself really is a powerful antidote to the chaos and all of the negative emotion in the world. Just be that person yourself. Your brain starts to change. After a while, it spreads out from you irresistibly to affect everyone around you.
Yeah, and I want to say also, I'm so glad, I'm excited about releasing this, because we've been working with a fire department and a police department using this technology, and just in the preliminary couple of months or 3 months that we've been doing this, the feedback that we've been getting is extraordinary. And police officers, it's like, what a stressful, job, and they've finding it's helping them sleep, it's helping them get more present, it's helping them to love their people more and love their work and this calling they've been called to. But I can't wait to get this particular technology into the hands of these police officers that are serving. I think it's going to be a huge help. And I so deeply also want to honor the work that you've done with veterans suffering from PTSD. And as a veteran, I super appreciate that, and that you've been using this, and hopefully this an additional technology we can use to further that work. And
Yeah, the more stress you have in the outside world, John, the more inner resources you need. So if you have a stressful job and you are stressed, meditate and develop those inner resources to counter that exterior stress.
And I would just say, as a practical recommendation, if a lot of you have probably already done this, but do your meditation, use this EcoMeditation first thing in the morning. I mean, I have to go routine. I have to get, before I can meditate, I have to take my dog on the walk, and I make the coffee and blah blah blah. But once I get back, then it's my time. Okay, down doggy, and I do the meditation. I've been working with this track, and it's been extraordinary. And then when I'm finished with that, then I could get into my study, my writing, and my reading in a place that I'm already naturally focused and in a flow state, and get a lot more done. And that becomes, again, the reading and writing becomes another yoga, another way to join with this higher energy that gets evoked or stimulated from EcoMeditation, this tool that we're working with.
Yeah, we did one study that is being published in a peer-reviewed medical journal soon, and it looked at an interesting new metric. So we looked at things like PTSD, anxiety, depression, pain, happiness, and we researched those well. We know that eco-meditation does all those things. And in this new study, we looked at a measure of productivity. We wondered, like the argument when I was, by people who didn't believe in meditation, what I was doing spiritually when I was a young man, they said, oh, your head's in the clouds. You're good for nothing. You're up, drifting up there. What good are you? You're up there in heaven. You're no earthly good. So the idea was that people who are in these elevated states, in these transcendent states, sure, they're having ecstatic experiences, but what good are they when they're parenting, when they're doing a project, when they're a team member, when they're an entrepreneur? And so we wanted to look and see what the effect was. Was it really degrading their performance or improving it? And we found that after, these were people doing a program. I have a very simple program called a 21-day walk with your higher power. And they use eco-meditation every day for 21 days. And what they do after the induction phase, the 5 minutes, is they connect with their higher power and they open themselves to guidance. And what we found was that after 21 days, they had a dramatic increase in productivity. Their productivity at work and at home went up by a statistically significant 20%. And 6 months later, on retest, on follow-up, they'd gone up 26%. Now imagine that. Imagine being 26% more productive at what you do. That means you're getting done now in 3 days what used to take you 4. So now you have a day more for playing with your kids, for creating art, for dancing, for doing things you love, for working if you want to use it for that, for creating, for self-care. You've just given yourself basically an extra day a week as a result of doing this. And whenever I hear people say, oh, I can't meditate, I'm too busy, I say, if you're busy, you cannot afford not to meditate because we've shown now in this crucial study, it actually improves your productivity. It does not degrade it. So you actually will have more time in the day when you meditate.
So you really have no good excuse not to do it.
Excuse removal. We're the excuse removal business.
Louis, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask? I know we've been going. We just keep flowing here. But any other questions that you wanted in? Okay.
No, yeah, going.
Lee or Dawson, do you guys have any kind of wrap this up? Last things you'd like to say before we sign off here? I think we've covered a whole bunch, and I would just like everyone, if you're still listening to this, you're interested in doing this, to commit to what Dawson said of doing it just 21 days, and then let us know how it's going. But because my experience, it just gets deeper and deeper the more you use it. So that's what I'm going to say. That's all I have to say right now. But thank you, Lee, and thank you, Dawson, for this extraordinary tool to make
Let me add a little bit to that.
a difference.
I'm inspired to do the whole 21-day thing. You know, I've always found myself over the years in a position where I'm very fortunate to work with people that they're people helping people. And I have done recordings and produced things for dozens of different therapists and educators and people that bring just new techniques to the fore. And so you would think that I'd be so knee deep in doing these things all the time that I'd be some sort of guru, and I'm certainly not. But this really is inspiring me to get knee deep in, like John, like what you're doing. You're a couple weeks in now already, right? So I got to catch. But I mean, whether I'm really getting in there or not, I'm glad and honored to participate. Because I mean that's part of the path I'm on in this lifetime is whatever I'm able to do, in this case with music, to put stuff out there that helps the masses, and the people that are willing to take it and give it a whirl. And to join with Dawson, what you've been doing is I'm proud to be involved.
So Lee and John have given you your homework. Your homework is to spend the next 21 days and just do it every day. And as John says, do it first thing in the morning, because that way you frame your day in this positive emotional state. And then everything that happens in that day is within that framework, and you tend to do much better with everything that happens subsequent to that. So start your day that way. Love yourself enough to just move into these elevated states to begin each day that way. You become much more optimistic, much more positive as the month goes on. You become much more productive. You get more done. You have a more satisfying external life. Your levels of happiness start to rise. And again, our research shows that people get dramatically happier after just a month of doing this. So that's our assignment for you. We love you so much.
Right.
We want you to follow that assignment and just do it for the first month. And we can pretty much guarantee you'll be hooked.
It'll be a pleasure, not a chore. It's something you look forward to. Well, okay, gentlemen, brothers, And everyone, thank you so much for joining us in this. And yeah, let's commit to the 21-day thing, and then let us know how it's going. Because the more information we have, the better we can do.
Well, welcome back. And we hope that you enjoyed our presentation today. So as we mentioned, or as I mentioned earlier before at the start of this webinar, we are introducing our latest product, or our very first product collaboration with Dawson Church. And this is a product that we have been working on for the last 4 years. And we are so glad that this product is now available out there in the world. And we hope that you would check it out and support this latest product collaboration that we have with Dawson. So we're calling this EcoMeditation, a science-based tested path to heal your wounded heart and awaken your soul. Um, this is a special iteration of Dawson's already a very famous EcoMeditation, and we have added, or we have included, a brainwave entrainment, our iAwake signature brainwave entrainment technology to this very, very special guided meditation. Now, EcoMeditation is a superior technique that melds the wisdom of traditional meditation with cutting-edge neuroscience to create an extremely powerful and effective path to healing trauma and spiritual awakening. Um, we're going to be putting the link in the chat box right here, right there, so you can check it out. You'll also be seeing some emails about it over the next few days. So yeah, we encourage you to listen to the sample, and hopefully would love to hear more of your feedback as we also use EcoMeditation. So we want to thank you so much for participating and for joining this webinar. We appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, please send us an email at support@iawaketechnologies.com. And we'd love to hear your thoughts about this webinar. If you have any questions for Dawson, for John, or for Lee, or if you have any questions about EcoMeditation or meditation practice in general. And yeah, thank you so much, and we hope to see you again so soon. Bye.